Hi, everyone, and welcome to Brunch with Bigfoot, Michigan Rob, and I'm your host, BMR. And as always, I'm joined by the bearded one, Tex. If this is your first time here, please subscribe on YouTube to Tex's Front Porch. Give us a thumbs up, leave a comment, and don't forget to hit the alert bell. You can find us on Odyssey Radio, iHeartRadio, and on Facebook at Texas Front Porch. You can also reach us by email at paracryptidencounters@gmail.com or by text at 972-559-0988. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube to Bigfoot, Michigan Rob. If you enjoy our content and would like to support us, the Super Chat is always open, or you can Venmo us at @ Tex 6717. Thank you and enjoy the show.
Hey guys, glad everybody could join us today. As you see, I am by myself up here. I do have a co-host today though, and we will introduce him in a minute. However, just let you all know that BMR is snowed in and iced in, and he lost his power. So you're stuck with me today, and I'm going to bring up my co-host, Mr. Jason McLean. So you're stuck with both of us.
Yeah, you're stuck with the both of us. At least I'm the bearded co-host, so at least that's still valid.
Right. It still makes sense, right?
Oh, so exactly. I can pretend to be Tex.
There you go. I know. I did the wrong intro. I just hit
well, as soon as it said that, I'm like, well, I guess we know which intro we weren't supposed to use.
Right. I know next time. Number 2.
There you go. Yep.
So, excuse me. I'm fighting a cold, guys, and I feel okay. It's finally breaking loose. So if I go on mute, and that's why. But anyway, let's give some shout outs to a few people that's in here. We've got a bunch of people in here today, Jason. Looks like Val and Midwest Night Watchers, Sugar Britches. Let's see, Sheldon and Dawn. Hello. I don't want to skip anybody. Daryl Denton, what's up? Let's see.
Joe Weeks, Robert Moore, Lily Pond.
Yep, Lily Pond. Gene Hudson.
Pat Murphy. Gene.
Yep.
Danny Stanton.
Yeah. There's a bunch of familiar faces in there.
Yeah. So, Judy Wheeler. Yeah. And Pam Smith.
Yep. Awesome. We're glad everybody could join us. Robert Moore. If we missed you, we apologize, but we definitely appreciate everybody being here and sticking out the next hour and a half with Jason and I. And we've got a cool guest. Robby Rains. He has his own show, and I'll be dropping the links in the chat so you guys can go and subscribe to him too. It's What's Really Out There. He also has a Facebook page too, so if you guys would find that and go join that. And he's a Bigfoot researcher, and he's one of the co-hosts for DAX Machina. So let's just bring Robby up. Hey there.
Howdy.
Hey, Krista. Hey, Jason.
So, Robby, I'm sorry, Krista.
I was just telling him thanks for joining us. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
It's our pleasure. Robby, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, how you do it?
Well, first off, I'm a police officer. Been a police officer for about 26 years. Got into Bigfoot researching, or maybe not researching it first. Got into the phenomenon when I was younger and had my encounter when I was probably 8, 9 years old, somewhere around in there. That's where all that sparked off. Not long after I had the encounter, I saw Legend of Boggy Creek, and then just couldn't get enough, in search of, back then.
Oh yeah.
When you couldn't just get on the internet, look up everything. You just had to wait till something come on TV, and I love those old In Search Of shows, or, the $6 Million Man where Andre the Giant played
yes.
Bionic Bigfoot. Any of that stuff was just, if it was on, I watched it. So but as somebody who had seen that, you couldn't tell anybody back then because you get labeled as crazy. So for probably 40 years, at least 30 years, I hardly told anybody. My stepdad and mom really didn't believe me up until probably a couple of years ago. My stepdad became a pretty firm believer, and he's probably my biggest supporter family-wise, other than my daughter. But I read Odin's Call, Wild Hunt, and there was a line that DA put in that book where it was talking about the tree peaking. One of the front the guy in the front of the column saw one. He called Clark, the main character, up. He said, "Where's that?" He said, right there, it's tree peaking. He described it doing, and when I read that line, I got cold chills because I remember my encounter looking through my great grandparents' kitchen onto the back porch at night and watching that thing do that on the screen door, just sway back and forth. I mean, what tree peaking, obviously, because there's no tree in front of the back door, but it was swaying just like that. Yeah. And reading that line, reading that line, it just brought all that back. So I sent DA an email, and one thing led to another. Email back and forth. He wanted to tell my story. Then it changed into him telling my story. Hey, you want to come on and tell your story? And I'm like, sure. And Anthony was on that night, so that's the first time I did a video call with DA before that, but that's the first time I met Anthony. And then going on that show, I'd kind of been thinking about doing a podcast, because I was like, well, a podcast, I can just sit behind a microphone and talk, and I don't have to worry about being on camera or anything like that. So a buddy of mine that's into the same stuff, we started What's Really Out There, and Lance and I did probably, I think, 4 or 5 episodes before life just got in the way with Lance. He's younger than I am, so his kids are still in school. So he just couldn't, both my kids are grown. I'm more set in my ways in my schedule type thing. So Lance couldn't really afford to put as much time into it. So I thought, oh, well, here we go. I get it started, now it's going to stop. Well, then in between that, DA had asked me to start co-hosting DAX Machina. And he introduced me to Norm, who lives in South Carolina. He lives in Anderson, and I live in Pickens. And Norm and I got talking. Well, as Norm and I got talking, we got an email from Johnny about a sighting up in Greenville County, which is the next county over from me. So we all three went up and met, did our little investigation. And there again, one thing led to another with that. And Johnny and Norm became my co-hosts on What's Really Out There. So, and we're 28, I believe, Krista, 28 episodes in.
Yeah. And I have to say, I've listened to them all, and they're worth listening to. And it's all just not cryptid type related stuff, too. I mean, you've got a lot of other things out there.
Yeah, we try. I mean, cryptids is kind of what brung us to the dance, so to speak. That's what we talk about all the time. The good old JR reference. But we try to get, if we hear something, and Norm's, he's pretty much our researcher. He's the one that gets on and finds all the stuff. But I mean, obviously Johnny and I will contribute too when Norm don't have an idea, or whenever the idea is decided what we're going to talk about. Norm's the one that goes out and does all the research on it.
Yep.
So, and we've done everything from our top 3, each of us listing our top 3 cryptids. We did an episode on movie monsters. Johnny and I just did an episode. It should be in the next week or so, should be released. We did one on top 10 Bigfoot movies, kind of discussed those. Norm was out on that episode, because he works EMS, so sometimes he's kind of hit or miss. But
Lost Colony, you did that one?
Yeah, the Lost Colony of Roanoke. We did one on that. Did one on Crybaby Bridge, which is paranormal, which is out of my wheelhouse, but Norm loves that stuff. We had his partner actually came in. That was actually a pretty good episode. Did you listen to that one? His partner Tori. That was a pretty good story. But like I said, that's not my area of expertise, but I know there are people out there who like that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I always joke around on when DA asked me to at the end of the show to tell about. I always call it DAX Machina Light, because we really get in depth with stuff on DAX Machina. We go most of the time 2 hours. We've gone 3 hours before.
Mm-hmm.
What's really out there? We try to stay around the 30 to 40 minute mark. Sometimes we've hit over an hour, but for the most part, we try to just stay. One story, talk about the story, break it down, look, see if there's any logical explanations for it, like the Lake Norman monster. When we did that that to me was one of the, from what I wanted to do with what's really out there from the start. That episode to me was one of the best of what we wanted to do. Here's the story. This is what people say they're seeing. Here's some other creatures that live in the area that could be that, and just it was exactly what we wanted to do. And but we've had a ball with all of them because every one of them are different.
Right. And even same thing with your Facebook page too. It's a little bit of everything, because I know I post ghost stuff on your page and stuff too.
And that's what like we were talking backstage. Everybody's got different opinions. There's no expert. Anybody that tells you an expert or tells you they're an expert, they're selling something, because nobody knows until there's a specimen on table, which is bad to say. We don't advocate that, but until there's a specimen on table, nobody is going to know.
Yep, I agree.
My opinion and this person's opinion are opinions. That's all they are.
Yeah.
And just because I got the opinion that Bigfoot is a real creature and this person over here thinks it's interdimensional, that doesn't mean we have to hate each other or fuss and fight.
Correct.
It's different opinions.
Yep. And it's not necessarily only opinions, it's what you have encountered, That's my beliefs on it. You encountered flesh and blood when you've seen yours as a child. However, myself, at the LBL, I seen a lot of weirdness and lights going on with what I saw, so that was kind of wooish to me, but it doesn't make your encounter any wrong nor mine.
No, exactly. I mean,
we can still be friends at the end of the day.
Exactly. And that's, that's kind of how it's definitely how we are at DAX Machina. It's how we are at what's really out there. I mean, there's too many things in this world that are unexplained for somebody to be able to say, I know. No, you don't know. You suspect, you have a theory, but that's about as far as it goes.
Right. Yeah. Because that's what you saw. Yeah, exactly.
Until we, like you said, until we have a specimen on the table, we can poke it with a scientific stick. And until we have, let's be honest, the Spookatron 5000, patent pending, until that's up and running, we don't even have an objective way of analyzing or observing what you would call paranormal phenomena anyway.
Right.
Like so we can't even objectively tell necessarily one from the other until there's like a body on a slab, which again, none of us advocate for. But until we can objectively observe and say, okay, just like we know gorillas don't disappear into balls of light, right? It's like until we can objectively observe one and test it and poke it with that stick and be like, yeah, he's here, it's we're not going to have those answers. And until we get the Spookatron 5000, patent pending, we're not going to be able to say, oh, look, there's a ghost there, or it's an angel, or it's a demon, or it's a djinn, or some again, all of our concepts on that may be just entirely incorrect. If you went back 600 years and said the reason you get sick is because these tiny critters so small you can't see them, they think you were nuts. Because until you have a microscope, that entire concept is even on the table. There may be concepts that we don't even have on our table yet.
Absolutely. I just feel like, my own personal opinion, I think they're all intertwined just because of what I have personally encountered, So,
well, and like I said earlier, there are a lot of things, and William and I have talked about this before. A true shapeshifter, a true skinwalker, is only going to show you either what you truly fear, what you truly want it to manifest. So, who's to say that some of these Bigfoot that people have seen walking in the portal or doing whatever that was not really a Bigfoot, but a skinwalker,
right?
Yeah.
And because Hollywood is fantasized everything. You got the movie Skinwalkers where it's about werewolves. Well, skinwalkers are not werewolves. Totally different thing.
Yep.
You know,
Skinwalker is more for me on a spiritual level than
exactly
a level, you know.
So yeah, people have to step back, chill out, and realize that there are more opinions and more ideas on the table. Until something concrete is proven,
Yeah.
then that's all they are, is theories.
Yeah. Let me say something here. Freaky Geek asked, why put a body on a slab and not one in a case so you can let it go once DNA tests and video footage has been documented? I just want to reiterate, we are not advocating going out and killing one of these things.
Yeah, that's just a figure of speech. I'm not saying somebody needs to go do that. And if you remember back, that's what I said, not advocating that.
Exactly.
But so to speak, until there's a body on the table, until there's a body in a cage or a specimen in a cage, however you choose to spend it. I'm not saying go out and kill one. That's not what I'm saying.
Exactly.
But what I'm saying is until there's one to study one way or the other, then there's not going to be anybody that knows if their opinion is right, wrong, or indifferent.
Right.
And there are people who are working to do things like eDNA. The Sasquatch albivernix we're working on getting that tested, both chemically and for DNA. If you don't know what that is, that's when you see the handprints that sort of have that milky white substance, that's what that is. It's being collected, it's being tested. So there are other ways of doing this, but to Robby's point, I think this is the thing. Since Bigfoot hasn't just walked into town and been like, "Oh, hey, what's up?" Right, and allowed us to put it in a cage. Odds are it's going to be one that has died of natural causes, that's brought in, or gets hit by a car or a truck. Sadly, that's probably how we're going to, be able to have any real information on that. Because they just don't seem to like the idea of walking it up and letting us put them in a cage. If I was that big and strong and I'd like to stay away from humans, which I do, I wouldn't want to be put in a cage either. I mean, they're definitely smart enough not to want that.
Right.
So,
yeah.
Real quick though, Wolverine, yeah, you're still on the Spookatron 3000. You're not going to get anything with that. You got to upgrade, man. You got to upgrade.
Yeah, I just seen something like War Criminal 7. I agree. It's people going out and researching, to find some evidence, and that doesn't mean killing something. It's just researching. So, yep, exactly. Yep. So, Robby, we know that you're a police officer, and you've had training and tracking. Can you tell us a little bit about that and how you got started with that, and then how it relates with the cryptid?
Well, I was a canine handler for probably 8 years of my career. It's one of the best things that I ever did in law enforcement. But, learning how to run a track with that dog was fascinating. And I've always, I know everybody says I got I actually do. My great grandmother was half Cherokee. And I know that it drops exponentially, but that's part of my heritage. So I've always embraced that part of my heritage. And just man tracking has always been fascinating to me. There used to be a show called Man Tracker where it was a little reality show where they, you remember that show? Yeah. And I loved that show. I loved watching the tracker and how he worked and how he looked at everything. I read Byron Huggins' book, Hunter, which phenomenal book. It's it's a fiction book, but I got a lot of good information out of that book before I actually went to my class. And then there's other books that are written by I can't think any of them right here off the top of my head, but it's just something that always has fascinated me. I've always wanted to learn how to do. And the chief we have now, he is really big on training, and he's like, hey, we got a budget for it. If you want training, find it, let me know, and I'll send you to it. So last year I got on, I just went and searched tactical man tracking for law enforcement, and ended up going to tactical trainer tracking school in North Carolina for a week. Learned how to crawl around in the woods in North Carolina and how to read signs and look at tracks, break down the different parts of a track, how somebody lays a track down, stride, straddle, pitch, pressure release, just tons and tons and tons of information. I mean, our classroom material was about that thick, and we spent about 30% of the class was in classroom. The rest of it was outside in practicals. So it was just, it was the hardest class that I've ever been in law enforcement. It was also the most fun and most rewarding.
Yeah.
Larry and Talon Wilkerson are the two owners of the company, and they had a guy that works with them, Chuck McCall, who's a retired Special Forces Master Chief, and that was just, it was eye opening because there was and Krista, I know you've heard me say this. There's more to tracking than just looking down and seeing footprints and saying, "Oh, it went that way."
Right.
There's, and I didn't even know until I got into it how much, like sunlight or light in general, how much that plays on how well you can see the track versus how, that they took us out day one and drew a circle.
Let me interrupt you real quick, Robby. I just want to give a shout out to Anelia Gottfried. Thank you very much for the super sticker. We appreciate that. I'm sorry, Robby.
No, that's okay. They took us out day one and was on the infield of a softball field, and they'd drawn a big circle. Well, they put a track down, drawing a circle around it, and walked us around the outside edge of the circle. And you see that track, see it plain as day, and you move 2 inches around to your left, and the track completely disappears. And you know it was there. You were looking at it, but just because of where the sun is in relation to you, where you move to, that track either disappears or comes right back into. And a lot of people just don't realize how much goes into, seeing and doing this stuff.
Yeah.
So totally tracking, it's actually it's a passion. I really, really, really enjoy that aspect of it. I do it for the police department. Don't get to do it as much as I want to, but I've actually gotten a chance to use it in the researching too. Because first time we went out, Johnny and I went out, we found some tracks, and wasn't enough to make any kind of impressions of, but it was nice to be able to find them, and then be able to follow that pathway up to the cave that we found that time that we've showed on DX Machina.
Wow. Well, good deal. So when you did go out and you found the tracks, what are the things like you look for, like as far as tracking it? Did it just like go into water where you lost it, or can you tell us a little bit?
No, Johnny and I were walking up the main path that people walk over, and there was as we were walking in, there's a creek to our left, off down an embankment, and we come up, and we'd already seen the cave to our right, and so we stopped and we're looking at it, and we were like, that would be a good place for something to take shelter, hold up, stuff like that. So we had already got stopped in that area. Well, as soon as we stopped, I started immediately looking on the ground. I noticed what looked like a drag mark coming or going towards the side that the cave was on. So I walked over and started looking, and as it kind of went up the embankment, there was some soft ground right there, and I looked down and started looking around, and that's when I actually saw the toe prints of where it kind of put its foot on and pushed itself up the hill. And then once I saw that, then I could look up and I could see, where it drug itself on up through the leaves and scuffed the leaves out.
Right.
So then I went back down lower and started looking for transfer, which is like when you come from one median to another.
Right.
So like from that soft earth, I went and looked back up into that leaf litter area, and I could see where some of that dirt had been transferred up to there. So I was able to establish that it was an actual trackway, and it looked pretty fresh because it had rained that morning and there was no water in the track. So, it was probably only a couple hours old at the time that Johnny and I saw it. So seeing that, then I went back across the path to where the creek was, and I was able to find where it came up the hill on that side. So, just little things like that about knowing how things linked together because the path was hard packed. There was nothing was going to make. You might have like if rocks are in a hard packed ground like that and they get pulled out, you'll still have the socket that the rock was actually in, so you can see stuff like that. You might have a stick that's broke, and you look at that. You can look at the stick and see how long it's been broken by how we call it fresh meat. If it's been broken for for a relatively short amount of time, if you can't really tell, you can take the stick and break it at a different spot and look at the difference from how the wood looks there versus how it looks where the breaks actually that you found is. Rolling over and seeing it, like a leaf, if it's still wet on the bottom because it was contacting the ground and it didn't hit the sun. But if it was just flipped over and the leaf's still wet, like I said, there's a million different things that you can look at to see stuff like that. And then when you find something, then going back and start looking at all these other little pieces and start piecing them together. Yeah, it's a fulfilling feeling to start piecing stuff like that together and say, hey, this actually works.
Right. How big do you think that? How large of tracks were they?
This had to be a juvenile because Johnny had a big ladder, and he laid the big ladder down. We took some pictures of it. The big toe was as big as the big ladder, but obviously that's small comparatively on a Bigfoot. So we're thinking juvenile because I don't think the impression level was not deep enough for it to be more than probably 300 or 400 pounds. Yeah. So if it'd been a big adult, it would have been a lot bigger and a lot deeper, been a lot wider. Right. It was what we found was probably the size of my hand. So, and that was just from the middle of the foot forward to the end of the toes.
Okay. And I guess that's what I wonder a lot about, like you hear a lot of people saying that they're in families, and then to see like, you've seen a juvenile, was it just wandering away a little too far away from the family or you didn't see, mom and dad's footprints? Well, I don't know.
Well, there's been other times we've been out there that we know for sure that there's been at least 2, if not 3, because Johnny and I went out there one time to set up trail cams, and every time we've gone out there, something's paced us back to that gate where the parking lot is. And this time we're standing out there just talking at the vehicles, and about 30 yards on past the gate, which was back behind where our trucks were. So it was in between us and the way to get out. Basically, we're sitting there talking, and we hear something up, kind of slip and fall down the hill a little ways. Well, as we stopped and was focusing on that, all of a sudden you hear back over towards the other side of the gate, you hear 2 or 3 more commotions over there. We turn around and look for that, and as soon as we turn around this way, whatever was up here gets up, takes off back up the hill, and so it was a distraction to get us not focused. So we think the little one had followed us out, and then mom and dad, I guess, said made that distraction so it could get back over there with them.
Right. Kind of lured you away to get off of the small one. Yep, that makes sense. Makes sense. There's some questions out there we can answer real quick here. I've seen, let's throw this. It says, YJ Overlander says, this is all in a state of subjective opinion because the Smithsonian Institution is guilty of dumping evidence. This isn't a lack of evidence problem. It's a corrupt system problem.
Yeah, Smithsonian's been doing that for a while.
Yeah, Smithsonian's widely known for taking stuff and then, we never got that. Losing record, losing.
Right.
Losing. Yeah.
Yeah, losing.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. And then Daryl asks, what night is Robby show on? And if he can send us link to Bigfoot Believers and other creatures every week, he'll support your show.
We pre-record what's really out there. So we're on Spreaker, iHeart, Spotify. We got a YouTube channel, the same name. That's the easiest way to just subscribe to the YouTube channel and hit the bell, and it'll notify you when a new one's released.
Yeah. And I've also I've shared on Daryl's group as well. So you've been on there. Yep. So let's see here.
They'll just go to YouTube and search what's really out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they've been dropping it in the link too in the chat. So yeah. Country Boy Cryptid says, I don't think we'll ever see a body on the table. That's just my opinion, though.
Probably not. I mean, I've been a hunter and been in the woods my whole life. I'm 48 years old. I've never seen a bear skeleton in the woods. I've never seen a dead bear. I've never seen a dead deer unless it's one I shot.
Right.
I mean, so if animals like that that we know for a fact that we've seen, how can we think that an animal that's smart as Bigfoot is not gonna, like Jason said earlier, if it's smart enough to know I don't want to be around people, it's not gonna leave its right. Dead for, and that's something Noah and DA and I kind of got into a discussion about a couple of shows ago. I don't know if you heard that or not, Krista. Mm-hmm. And I know you were on the show when we talked about the 411 missing 411 overlay with the cave systems.
Yep, I was actually on that show that night. I think.
What if these animals are subterranean or somewhat subterranean?
Right.
And those tree knocks we hear, what if that's a form of echolocation?
Yeah, could very
Instead
well.
of actually being a tree knock, yeah. Well, again, it just goes back to, again, these creatures just have to, even if there's just one by himself, he gets sick, he just has to die where people aren't, and that body is gone.
Yeah, it doesn't take long for nature to take stuff like that over
a week. So that's the problem is, again, very small population. Sadly, one of these things would have to go, again, be hit by a truck or something for that. So to his point, it's entirely possible we will never have a body on a slab. But it is, unfortunately, that's the situation we're in. Maybe one day we'll just decide that it's sick and tired of living free out in the woods and decide that it wants to get fed and walk into a zoo and just be like, hey, feed me and I'll give you what you want.
Right.
I don't think it's going to happen, but
you
never know.
Right. Reading through some of the comments here. We got more in there. I guess this is honestly, I can say this is a my bad. So this is just a suggestion. Your branding is confusing. Blondes and Booze, Jason, Bigfoot, Rob. Okay. So to explain all of this, and I should have done the intro, but usually Brandy does it. So it's not in my brain, but we all platform together with Jason, his show, Bigfoot Rob, and Texas Front Porch. So that's kind of how that works. So while we're on it, Jason, do you know the spiel or do you want me to read it?
I do know the spiel. Yes, I will do my best Rob imitation. Yeah. On Mondays at 7 in the East, we have Texas Front Porch. That's TX' Front Porch because it's his porch. On Tuesdays, we've got Bobby Van Buren over at the Van Buren Variety, broadcasting at 7 in the East. Then, of course, Jason's over. He does a little funny thing over at Untold Radio AM at 9. And, of course, Bigfoot Michigan Rob does Beyond BMR on Tuesdays at 8 in the East. Then on Wednesdays, you've got Jason McLean Questions Everything at 9 in the East, 8 Central. And then on Thursdays, you've got Brunch with Bigfoot Michigan Rob at 1 in the East, noon Central. And you've got the Blondes and the Booze at, 7? I just forgot that. I think it's 7 Central.
8 p.m. Central.
8 p.m. Central, 9 in the East. And, of course, if you're not done with the Blondes and the Booze, we add the Woo with the Blondes, the Booze, and the Woo on Friday nights at 9 in the East, 8 Central Standard. That's my best Rob impression. It's terrible.
I know he does it so smooth, right?
Yeah, that's what he does. It's smooth.
Yeah. So sorry about that. I should have done that in the beginning, and I apologize. Like I said, Brandy's the one that does that for me on our show. So anyway, but let's see here. There's a few more comments here. Robby, this one's directed towards you. Randy Harrington asked, have you successfully tracked and found anyone in a policing aspect?
Yes, actually I have a couple. Most of them were with a dog, but I've had one since I learned to do the other tracking.
Anything you can kind of talk about or not?
The one with the dog I can, but the others they're still pending. So the one with the dog was probably the most warning guy. Carjacked a girl down in Clemson. and she was able to get out of the car and call 911. When he took off, bush bonded, which is what we call when they take off, when they take to their feet and run out in the woods, they get bonded with the bushes. So a buddy of mine who was a lieutenant down there at the time, he called our dispatch and asked if I could come down and run track for him. So I left. I was working at where I'm working right now at the time. Left, took off, went down there. They had a pretty good perimeter set up. He said, I think he went in one or two places. I said, all right, well, let's start with the first one. When we went in, he was like, I think she's tracking me because this looks like where I walked in. I said, well, let's finish it on around. Let's go in the second spot. Went back around. He said, okay, the other one was like 40 yards that way. So we walked on up, did my whole spiel again. Police K9, come out so you don't get bit. She went in, looked around. Head popped up. There's a bunch of kudzu. Head popped up. She jumped over this tree that was sitting down, and it was covered by kudzu. As soon as she hit the ground, she bristled up and started growling. Two hands come up out the kudzu about 10 feet away from her.
Wow.
That's a lot of fun.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah.
And he is still in jail at this time, and that was 13 years ago.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
13, 14 years, something like that. It was a good long time ago, and he's still in jail.
Right. Well, it sounds like it's probably a good thing he's still in jail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we found out later on he was actually wanted for murder somewhere up in
definitely he's
Pennsylvania or something like
he's in
that.
jail. Oh, Jesus.
So that plus this added on, so I don't think he'll ever get out of it.
Right.
Yeah. I know you have talked about like Bigfoot backtracking in their footprints. Can you talk a little bit about that, about from your experience and with the tracking, how that plays a part?
If this is kind of a two-part thing. Humans can be taught to do that. Special forces do that all the time.
Mm-hmm.
It happens in the natural world. Grizzly bears will do it. Rabbits will do it. Okay. If we can be taught to do it, and these animals in the natural world do it, why is it so hard to believe that something that smart cannot do that? And when you hear people talking about, and there again, this is not me downing people's beliefs. This is just my take on what's happened. You hear people say, well, I was tracking it. I was following the footprints and it just stopped. Yeah. Okay. I get that. But that was part of our training is we had to follow somebody, and there was chances of them backtracking. So you have to look track just to somebody who doesn't know what to look for is not going to look that fundamentally different from a track that was laid from heel to toe. If a track's laid from toe to heel,
right.
There are subtle differences. And if you know what to look for, you can look for that. So you tracking, you don't think nothing about this big boulder that you just walked past. The 30 yards past that boulder, tracks just stop. So why is it so hard to believe that thing just backtracked up to that boulder, jumped to the right on that boulder, jumped up in a tree and took off about 15 or 20 yards away, came down and took off? I mean, like I said, grizzlies do it all the time. I've heard stories my whole life about hunters that were hunting grizzly bears and grizzlies backtracked on them and got behind them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I've heard a few of those stories as well. It's nuts.
And I've heard rabbit hunters who have watched rabbits backtrack and get behind their dogs, and the dogs just get in that loop and the rabbit just constantly stays behind them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, look at seals when they're being chased by great white sharks. A lot of times they'll turn back on themselves and get behind the shark. As long as they stay behind the shark, they're safe. So you always have to look at the natural world to get a lot of the answers that we need.
Mm-hmm.
If it's already being displayed in the natural world, it's not a stretch to believe that that's something that is happening. And these things they're born wearing a natural ghillie suit. Doug Highcheck has already found all these hair samples that have clear clear follicles, just like polar bears do, that capture light and redirect it. Case in point with that, Johnny and I we saw something up over a rock. We were 2 feet apart. He was looking at this angle. I was looking at this angle. This goes back to what I was showing you with light. He's looking at it from this side. I'm looking at it from this side. He sees a brownish color. I see a dark black to a gray color. We're looking at the same thing. So,
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And to your point, it's these creatures are survived by staying away from us. Mm-hmm. They, and making certain that if they haven't, if they come across us, that they are the ones in control of the situation. It doesn't happen 100% of the time. Plenty of times they will walk up underneath a hunter, or they'll just, cross the street. But 9 times out of 10, the encounters are on their terms. Simple fact of the matter is, they are survived by staying away from us. They've learned how to do that, and their survival depends on them, not just staying away from us, but their ability to hunt, their ability not to be tracked by other animals, their ability to sneak up and ambush another animal. So their survival depends on these things. Not the vast majority of humans. Our survival doesn't depend on these skills.
No.
So
and
so to a lot of people.
That's a great point. That's something that I never even thought. Well, I mean, I'm sure I probably thought about it somewhere in the back of my mind, but I've never laid voice to that. That is a very, very good point. It's not just staying away from us. I mean, they're not sitting up in a tree stand with a 30-06 waiting for a deer to come by. They've got to chase it down, or they've got, or whatever. That's a very, very valid point.
Yeah. I mean, this is, unfortunately, oftentimes we get tunnel vision with what we know, and we don't ever stop to say, okay, what does this thing need to survive? Again, I think there's multiple phenomena happening, but I do think there's a tangible biological entity running around. That's why we do have things like scat and thermal images and hair, the Sasquatch alba vernix. Again, until maybe the Sasquatch alba vernix comes back as something overly exotic, I'm going to rely on there being something tangible there. But that there's a lot of this other stuff is this other phenomena. I'll call it paranormal. Got no problem with that. But that doesn't mean that the biological Bigfoot running around don't have just natural skills that their survival is depending on. That just seems very odd to us because we don't live in that world. I mean, the show Dirty Jobs, it seems like a weird analogy, but one of the reasons that show was so popular was people were experienced to worlds they'd never seen before. People doing things they're like, well, I didn't know this is where that floor grate comes from, right? Or what it takes to recycle something, or what concrete is made of and how that works. It was so popular because a lot of people were just seeing things they'd never seen before. They had no idea any of that was going on. That's the same thing for Bigfoot or any of these other cryptids. They survive in a world that we are, by and large, wholly unfamiliar with, even if you're out there hunting all the time. I can't tell you how often I've seen people, again, I live in Texas, not unfamiliar with hunting, but plenty of hunters have said, this is the first time I ran across fill in the blank animal, right? They've been out there, again, not even something unusual, but just first time I'd seen a gray fox, first time I'd seen a coral snake, first time, on and on and on. It's, if you're not always running across these creatures that are known to be in that area, and you can't, and you just, oh, hey, after 40 years of hunting, I finally saw one. And these are animals we know about. They survive by avoiding predators too, and hunting themselves. But you're telling me you haven't run across this one, but the idea that the Bigfoot is just, again, playing a much higher game, again, smaller population running around. Why would you see them?
Right.
And we've speculated that creatures like that would probably have a 2,000 mile, home range. I mean, think about a mountain lion. Mountain lion has anywhere from 200 to 260 mile range. That's a lot for a big cat. So something the size of Bigfoot would probably have to have something exponentially bigger than that. So it's not beyond the realm of reason to say it's 2,000. So if you've got a very few amount of animals in a 2,000 mile range,
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to be something that you're just going to run up on like a squirrel that's everywhere. I mean,
oh, well, yeah. I mean, back to the bear story, right? This started with Grover Krantz, who he famously would ask the question. He never ran across anyone in 40 years that ever run across one. Now, people do run across dead bear bodies so often that the FBI did a paper on how to tell the difference between a bear paw once it's been deteriorated to a point in a human hand. But the fact is, most people have never seen one. Well, there's over 550,000 black bears in the continental United States as it is. That's, I think if you were to ask most people, they wouldn't know that there was that many black bears. And like, to your point, we don't have a body on 9 times out of 10. Here in Texas, it's estimated to have between 1.5 to 3 million feral hogs. There are several thousand living in Irving, just north of me. And Irving's essentially just a continuation of the concrete sprawl from downtown Dallas. Nobody ever sees these things, but they cause thousands upon thousands of dollars in damage. Again, their world is surviving by avoiding predators, avoiding detection. And it's not like pigs. Again, pigs are not dumb, but they're not nearly as smart as a Bigfoot would be.
no.
And yet they manage to avoid a lot of detection. So much that they can have a population in the thousands in what is essentially a downtown cityscape.
Well, I learned a new term the other day in a class, and it's called expectancy theory. Have you ever heard of it?
Yes.
I think that has a lot to do with why there are so many people who know that Bigfoot does not exist. And for those out there who don't know what that is, it's basically based on the Pygmalion theory, where Pygmalion loved the statue they created so much that it came alive. Basically, it says that if you, and I'll use this in law enforcement terms because I learned it in one of my classes. You come in and they say, "Hey, they've got the perimeter set up. You got to go in and search this house." I said, "Last time we saw him, he went in there." And you got one or two options. You come in, you say, "Oh well, he ain't in there. He's already in Georgia by now."
Right.
Or you say he's in there and I'm going to find him. But let's go with option one. You go in there and he ain't in there. It's been 30 minutes since I got here. I'm wasting my time. And you got that in your head. You go in, you're searching, you go into the laundry room, and there's a big pile of laundry sitting up in the floor. And you walk by and you see somebody's foot sticking out of that laundry pile. But your brain has already convinced yourself or your body basically that guy is not in there. So your eyes see that foot, but your brain goes, pay no attention to that foot in the laundry pile.
Yeah.
There's nothing to see here.
It's
move
just
on.
a shoe.
Yeah. So therefore you just move on. And the guy's laying there in the pile the whole time. Whereas if you go in the other way and you take your time, you're consistent with your search and you see it and you look, it's like, And then you start seeing more and more. And I think that there are so many people who expect that this is not a real animal. When they see something, they're just like, that's a stick. That's a shadow. And they've already convinced themselves that it's not. And that's why we got so many people out here who DA says it all the time. There's people out there that it doesn't. You could bring a real one on a chain up to them and show it to them, and they'd be like, it's just a guy in a suit.
Yeah,
because they're already so convinced.
Yep, it's ingrained. It's already ingrained in their brain. Yeah.
Yep. Well, and to your point about the expectancy theory, that's essentially it's the same thing everyone experiences when they buy a new car, right? You don't see this car on the highways, but then once you buy one, you suddenly realize all the different.
Everybody's got one.
Everyone's got one. You're like, what just happened? Did everyone buy at the same time? No, your brain wasn't necessarily trying. You weren't looking for them, right?
Yep.
That's it. That's all there is to it. And I think this goes back to one of the big problems I think a lot of people have with seeing. Although we're coming up to the end of this hour, very quickly, is we don't actually see the way people imagine we see things as. Our brains are processing that data, and if you're unfamiliar with something to begin with, you don't actually see it correctly. This is how optical illusions work. The reason you can watch a movie and it looks smooth and clean. The reason you can optical illusions work is you don't actually see the things you see. Your brain is processing it after years and years of experience. It expects there to be things. So if you're not expecting there to be a Bigfoot, if you're just expecting there to be greenery, there's probably millions of people going in the woods, running across these things, never seeing them. Or if they do see something, they can even chalk it up to just being a bear. You know, this is the question that I get asked all the time is, how do you know they're not bears? How do you know all the bear sightings that a bunch of bear sightings aren't also Bigfoot sightings? Because unless you get a good on look at it, you may just say, well, it was a big hairy thing, must have been a bear, and the conversation's over.
Well, just
as
like
far as you're concerned,
just like the little boy in North Carolina who said he was saved by a bear. How many bears do you know have saved people in the woods?
Right. They're going to eat that little boy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
exactly.
He said a bear took care of him, brought him berries. That ain't bear behavior.
No.
Nope.
He was coached. I believe he was coached to say that was a bear.
Oh, yeah. Probably.
For sure.
But we are coming up to the end of this hour, so we're going to take a quick 5-minute break. Unfortunately, I will have to bid my adieu to you beautiful people in the chat and to Robby. I will let Krista, flag this ship home, as I know that she will. And we'll be back in 5 minutes. Again, if you're listening on Odyssey or you're listening on KPNL, come on over to the YouTube channel, Texas Front Porch, TEX''S front porch, or you can go to Bigfoot Michigan Rob's YouTube channel. And again, all the shows, all the links, everything's in the doobly-doo below. That's a technical term, the doobly-doo. But we'd love to see y'all. And if you're watching on replay, we'd love y'all too.
Yep, absolutely. We'll be back in 5.
Four minutes to go, folks. 4 minutes. Three minutes. We're almost there. Two-minute warning, guys. 2-minute warning. 1 minute. 1 minute.
Hey guys, welcome back. Appreciate you guys all sticking around. We have Robby Rains here with us, well, with me. Just so you guys tuning on, just now recently coming on, BMR had an ice storm go through there last night, and he is without power. So you guys are the first hour you were stuck with Jason and I, and this one you're just stuck with me. So I apologize to all of you. Anyway, but we have Robby here, so it's good, and he's got a lot of knowledge with tracking and Bigfoot and your encounters and the whole 9 yards, a little bit of everything. So,
Yeah, a little bit.
little bit. So I know with you, being part of the DAX Machina crew, DA is, into like the dogman and things like that too. So is that something that you're also open to?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I'm jealous of DA because he's had a dogman experience and encounter, and I haven't. And I want to have one.
He actually had a couple.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's I love my Bigfoot encounters that I've had because I've had several, but that I want to. Some people are like, what? You actually want to? Yeah, I do. I want to see a dogman.
Yeah,
but
I get it because I'm with you. I'm the same way. Like when I went to the LBL, I'd never like been out researching or done anything like that, and I thought, this is either the stupidest or the bravest thing I've ever done. Just jump into it at the LBL. So,
yep,
I get it. What about like other type cryptids? Mothman. Are you into any of that kind of stuff where you're open to?
Well, I'm not opposed to any of that stuff that could, because there's just way too much in this world to say that they have a narrow mind that this is the only thing.
Right.
We say this on DA's show all the time. Me and Norm and Johnny say it on our show. All these legends and folklore, it's all based on some form of truth. Something happened that caused these things to become the legends and the folklore that they are. So there's always, and it's just like most of the movies you see, they've got some grain of truth that they're based on. Hollywood has fantasized a lot of it too, but there's still something. Take Boggy Creek for example. I mean, that was based on countless,
encounters,
eyewitness accounts and things that have happened. That they went out and interview after interview after interview. For this to be like a lot of people like to say, like mass hysteria, and it had gone on for decades like that. And just like DA says, dogman sightings have gone back to the 1700s in this country. I mean, back then, maybe today, if something like that started today, you could say somebody's just looking for 15 minutes of fame. But back then, that they had no reason to do stuff like that. There was no reason to make this kind of stuff up. They said stuff because that's what they saw.
Right.
So
and back then they probably considered them like monsters. I mean, Bigfoot wasn't named Bigfoot and Dogman wasn't Dogman. They were probably considered monsters.
Well, and I've used this analogy several times. The word dinosaur was not coined until like 1863, 1800, somewhere around there. I can't remember the exact date, but the word dragon is used in the Bible hundreds of times.
Right.
So if you're sitting there looking at a Tyrannosaurus Rex, I mean, if you're a person like that, you're probably going to call it something like a dragon. If that's the word you had for something like that, that's probably what you're going to call it.
Right.
So who's to say that, you know, all these legends and folklore from all these other things that we call now a dog man, but back then they called it a werewolf.
Right. Right.
You know,
Exactly.
or Big Hairy Man is now the, you know, what we call Bigfoot because of that newspaper article. You know, all this stuff starts for a reason. So, yeah, I'm open to any of that stuff.
Yeah. We're getting more and more questions here, and I'm gonna put some of them up here. This is a question for you from Be Kind. It says, Robby, have you ever encountered tracking evidence or signs of little people?
No. Now, William says he saw in one of the pictures we sent, he saw something. I couldn't see it, but I'm not saying it didn't, but William said that he saw one in one of the pictures.
Wow.
But me personally, no, I've never seen
You haven't
anything.
encountered one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And then let's see here. This is just a comment to you, and I thought it was nice. Robby has a new subscriber here, Sheldon and Dawn.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Let's see. Let's go through these here. So YJ Overlander says, if Bigfoot researchers were actually serious about gaining real evidence of Sasquatch, they would charter helicopters and use thermal imaging to find them. The answers are so simple, yet nobody does it.
Well, they use thermal drones all the time. But the problem with using a thermal drone is you get a big heat signature out there. That doesn't necessarily mean that you're looking at a Bigfoot. You could be looking at a big bear. You could be looking at a couple of deer laid down in the woods. You know, boots on the ground going in and looking for the stuff is still probably going to be the way as it stands right now until technology catches up a little bit more, and you know, maybe some of this thermal imaging gets a little bit more advanced and you can actually see what you're looking at. But there've been heat signatures that are hit that you could pretty much look at and tell, I don't think that's a bear.
Right.
Especially when it's bipedal. But, you know, as far as helicopters, I can't speak on it, but just keep that thought in mind, YJ.
Yeah.
I've seen a video and I can't speak about it, but just keep helicopter in mind, YJ.
And not every Joe Blow can afford to go up in a helicopter and search
right.
either.
Yeah,
so,
I mean that's not a cheap means of traversing around.
Yeah, exactly. So let's see. There's some more comments here. Gene says that waste has been found, but most researchers won't believe anything unless it's research they find themselves, as far as I think finding.
Yeah.
So yeah, I could agree with that people, you know, they don't know unless they get it tested, I guess, you know, to see what it is. And then Robert Moore says, I believe they are just as intelligent as us. Stone Age tech, travel in groups, live a life all about full stupid humans. I think they're pretty smart too. I mean,
that's not far off.
Not at all.
We see chimpanzees use tools. I mean, how many times you watched them take a straw, put it in their mouth, wet it, stick it down in the termite mound, pull the termites out. I mean, that's using tools.
Yeah, and a lot of them too. I've seen, you know, a lot of like videos on TikTok and stuff. I've seen like where apes and monkeys, like they imitate humans. You know, what we do. You know, the monkeys doing it. So I think they're very smart. Yeah, let's see here. Next one is Anelia. She says, one of the biggest obstacles is if we do have to kill one via violence or car accident, we would call the police because that's all we know. Then off a body goes. I believe that. I believe it's already happened myself, but that's just my personal belief. We don't want to get into
I've never got that kind of call, but so I can't speak for that. But in some of these other places, probably good.
Yeah. Have you ever been like called out on something that you thought, maybe this could be a little more than a person?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's been prowler calls
Mm-hmm.
that you get out there, and people, the things that they've described, that if it was a person out there, that you would have seen them either coming up or you would have found. So there's things that make you wonder, like, but you can't say for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I was just kind of curious if you'd ever had a call where you're kind of like, kind of makes.
Yeah, I mean, there's DA and I were talking about that, and there's always a few of those in the back of your mind that you're just like, either this person's crazy and they're just hearing things, or
right.
So, but without knowing for 100%, which you can't say for 100% unless you actually saw something.
Right. Right. And then Strangeland says, I caught a see-through being 2 years ago at a cabin next to an oil tank by another cabin. It appeared like projection with a haze around it, then gone. Minutes later, it was roof edge and took full form. Honestly, my personal opinion on something like that, Strangeland, is probably like maybe a shapeshifter, possibly, or even a ghost. A ghost can do something like that. Would be my personal opinion. What about you, Robby? Would you? I don't think it's like a flesh and blood, obviously, if it looks like it shifted and took full form.
That there again, that could go back to like we were talking about Skinwalker or something like. I mean, obviously that's way outside of my wheelhouse.
Right.
So I would say that you're probably right on that. I can't speculate on things like that because.
Yeah, I'm just guessing.
Yeah, and that would be an accurate guess in my estimation.
Without seeing it myself, it's hard to see. So, Sheldon and Dawn asked you, what would have a 17-inch three-toed print?
Yeah, we've actually talked about that because if you go back and watch Boggy Creek, they had that one trackway in that guy's field that all had three-toed tracks, but that was the only three-toed tracks that they talked about in the whole movie. Small Town Monsters went back and did a show on it. There really wasn't any more three-toed tracks. There's I know you've listened to our episode on the Lizard Man on my show. We did one with DAs.
Yep.
I think that some of those three-toed tracks are what people were calling a Lizard Man.
Yeah. What about, and I'm not very familiar with them, but what about alligators? I don't know about being like 17 inches, but I mean, do alligators have three toes too?
No, they usually have 4, I think, or 5.
Okay.
But they're not long; they're wide.
Okay.
I mean, they're long comparatively, I would assume, but I wouldn't think they'd be 17 inches long. They would be wide because they got to be wider to support all that weight.
Yeah.
To spread that weight out, but
yeah, I don't know a lot about them, but I've been hearing kind of, and I guess this could be along the cryptid line. I read a post or something on Facebook where they have moved up into like Tennessee. So anything,
well, we did a show on the Tennessee Wild Man, which their sightings goes back to the Civil War era.
Yeah.
For that, Old Green Eyes was I don't know if it was in Tennessee, but it was around that area, which was a battlefield, either apparition or Bigfoot or something. They said they used to come out on the battlefield and take bodies. DA could tell you more on that one because he's really done a lot of research on it for the new book that he's working on. But there's, and that's what I was talking about in the pre-show was the Tennessee Wild Man is kind of an anomaly because it seems like everybody's description of him is different and it fits a different type of Bigfoot, from skunk ape to the grass man, the Janoska, the stone giant.
Yep.
There's a lot of the different Bigfoots that you hear talked about. Even some of them that might fit a Gugway.
Yeah.
So I don't. That's where I believe that Bigfoot as a whole, Sasquatch, Yeti, whatever you want to call it, is a one creature, maybe different subspecies, like an African elephant versus an Indian elephant. Crocodile versus alligator. They're all in the same genus, but there's differences. I mean, because like the Ohio grassman, that's the only one that makes those nests out of that big tall grass, but that's because that's where that grass grows.
Right. So it makes sense.
I think it's an adaptive thing. just like we were talking earlier, I think that a lot of these things are somewhat subterranean, and they stay. That's why you don't see them a lot during the day.
Yeah.
That's why the vision is better at night, because they stay down in the caves most of the time, and that's why you don't see them. And the map that we've shown, the overlay of the 411s versus the cave systems in the United States, very, very similar.
Yeah.
So, and there again, that's just a theory.
Yeah, exactly. All right, there's some more comments here. Not a boss. She says, I think gators have 5 in the front and 4 on the back. So
you're right. You're right, Marty. I knew 5 or 4, but I couldn't remember. But yeah, she's right, and she would know. She lives with them down there in Florida.
Right.
So
right.
But like I said, they're usually spread out wide. They're not. I mean, I guess they would be sort of long. I don't know that they would be 17 inches long, but I'm not an alligator expert. I know a little bit about stuff like that, but I don't know specifically that a gator track is going to be that long or not. I would say something like the lizard man, because that's generally that's what is described and talked about when they talk about them as the large, long 3-toed tracks. So Skateboard Swamp, which is down in Bishopville, South Carolina, that's probably the most famous of the lizard man, and that's all the tracks you hear about are long 3-toed tracks.
Right. Gotcha. Here's a shout out to DA. Meredith Ahern Tamilio says, D.A. Roberts is an amazing writer, especially when Cam reads his books for us.
Yep.
I agree. He is. He's a great writer.
Cam's working on, I think he's working on Blood Eagle right now, getting that out. But Cam and DA have got a lot of projects coming up down the road.
I look forward to them. And then Penny Van says, each time I hear Gugway, I get a chill up my spine. None for me, thanks. I'm right with you, Penny. I'm not a Gugway fan.
They're not exactly nice. I mean, the name Gugway translates into face eater.
Right. And they got that name for a reason.
Yeah, that's not warm and cuddly.
No, not at all. And then YJ Overlander says, I feel it's reasonable to suspect that old world werewolf DNA has been used to clone new version dogmen, super soldiers with some tweaks. I think anything's possible.
Yeah, anything's possible. That could be, or what I think is, they just captured some of them and have worked on them, because there's been several stories where, people have shot what they describe as a dog man, and then all of a sudden, Men in Black or whoever you want to talk about it pulled up. You shot our agent, or Right. So, I mean, we're talking about a government who weaponized dolphins to put mines on the side of a ship. I mean, how hard is it to believe they would take something like an actual dog man? It's like, ooh, what can we do with that?
Right. Yeah, Penny Van, she just says, no, I'd rather hug that werewolf canine and the funny meme I sent to Robby.
Yeah, that's a popular one that's been sitting around with a female canine handler. She's got a black German Shepherd, and it's got a set of werewolf teeth on it. Says,
I saw that one too. I've seen that.
That's a popular one with canine handlers.
Yeah, and I personally am not familiar with this comment, with this picture. I don't know if you are. The Gugway is the one in the 7 Shoots pic, maybe? I don't know that pic myself. Do you know that one?
I'm sorry, I'm answering something on.
Oh, you're good. The Gugway is one of the 7 Shoots pic, maybe? I don't know what that. I'm not familiar.
I think what they're talking about, if I'm thinking correctly, is that where they put up the 7 types of dogman.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Number 3 and one of the other ones, I can't remember. If I saw the picture, I can tell you. But for sure, number 3 is one we talked about, and DA says it, and I said it, Anthony says it. Said that we think the third one in the pic is a misidentified Gugway instead of a dogman. If that's what they're talking about, I think that's.
Yeah, you're correct on that. I bet you're right, because I didn't put 2 and 2 together. I have a question for you. So, like me doing paranormal, I have all kinds of places on my bucket list that I want to visit and ghost hunt. What about you for researching, Bigfoot and dogmen and other cryptids? What is on your bucket list? Where do you just want to go to sometime?
Well, obviously LBL. That's up there. I'd like to go to Ape Canyon.
Mm-hmm.
I want to go to Snell Grove Lake. I want to go to Bray Road.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of tossed back and forth for Pine Barrens in New Jersey, but that's a spooky place.
Yeah.
But those are a few places right off the top of my head that I'd like to go to.
Yeah. I'm with you on some of those. I'd like to really, one place I want to go to is out to like the Pacific Northwest and just, you know, not only for looking for cryptids, just the scenery itself, you know.
Yeah, and that's those. To me, those places are good, but those places like they seem to be like, oh, this is where everybody wants to go. I want to go to those places that not a lot of people go to, like Snellgrove Lake. There's not been a whole lot of people go out and research out there because there's been some wild stuff.
Where is that at?
That's in Canada.
Canada.
It's so remote that you have to take a float plane to it.
Oh wow.
Dr. Meldrum and a couple, I think Doug was actually there, but Doug Hychek, who's the producer of Monster Quest, they actually shot a couple shows out there, and they said some freaky stuff happened out there. There's not supposed to be anybody else out there because, like I said, it's so remote. You have to use a float plane to get to it, and they had rocks thrown at them and all kinds of stuff. So I'd love to go out there. Bray Road, just because that seems like that's
a given.
Yeah, and Ape Canyon, I'd love to go to because of that story. Just it fascinates me, and I don't understand why more people don't key in on that because there's a lot like the Skookum print.
Yeah,
laying that was in that area, that county. I think that's a hot spot that people just don't really know about or think about, rather.
Right. I think there's a lot of places out there that people don't realize, that are really pretty active, but you only hear about the big ones. You only hear about the LBL and Northern California and Washington and,
Yeah.
Let's see here. You have another question. Damian K asked, Robby, how long do you research? I guess I'm taking it as how long when you go out. How long do you stay out maybe?
Well, working full time, it's not like I have a whole lot of time to go and take trips. But I got in April some vacation time coming up, and Anthony and I are going to be camping out in Ocala National Forest for a couple of days.
Cool.
Before the Bigfoot conference on the 22nd. So I'm going down the 18th, and I don't know exactly what we're going to spend. A couple of days out there in Ocala National Forest. Anthony's actually had his encounter down there, so we're going to see what we can. And Marty's got some places down there, I think, that she's going to talk or tell us about. So hopefully we'll get down there and get to see some stuff, and I'll get a couple of days in versus just being able to go out for a couple hours at a time. Right.
Yeah, that would be cool. And then are you just tent camping, or are you just going through the day and getting
we're going
at night?
We're actually going to tent camp for a couple of nights out there.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. You have another question here. Penny Van asked, would you agree that the best chance of having a cryptid experience is out where people don't usually go at all?
Yeah, and we've talked about that a couple times too. Going in for a day or two and coming out is, you may look out and have an encounter like I've looked out, but you got to get out there and get yourself established. It's just, it's like hunting. I mean, you don't go out, and usually you don't go out and 30 minutes after you sit in the stand, see a deer walk up. Sometimes you're lucky and have that happen, but a lot of times you got to go in there a couple of days and get them used to coming in and out before you actually see something.
Yeah.
So, I think you got to go in there and you got to get yourself in there and established and, before something really good would happen.
Yeah. And honestly, I feel like, like you going out there, like you got to give them time to get familiar with you too, if that makes sense, because they say that you don't find Bigfoot, they find you, So maybe like where you're out there and they're trying to figure you out too. So what does Damien says, Robby, you didn't answer my question. Well, maybe we misunderstood your question, Damien. Could you explain it a little more as far as maybe he meant how long have you been doing it?
Well, if you mean how long have I been doing it, I mean, as far as actually going out and doing it like this, probably about 2 or 3 years, but I've been interested in it since I was 8 or 9 years old.
Yeah. And that's when you had your first encounter, when you were just a kid.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Can you talk to me about like some of the, I know you just said you're going to Ocala, but what are some of the upcoming other stuff that you guys have going on?
Well, Johnny and Norman and I, we have a place that we've been going to a pretty good bit. It's a pretty good hot spot. There's another place. I can't remember where it is. Norm's got all that information, but it's another place here in South Carolina that it's like a farm with, maybe like 30 acres or more that they've been having some stuff going on. So we're trying to get set up to go out there. We've only got like 3 trail cams right now, so we're trying to get a few more before we go out there, because 3 trail cams on 30 acres is not a whole lot of coverage.
Right.
So Norm's trying to work on getting us a few more of those, so we can, we want to go out there and set up a good. Plus, I'm actually working on something DA and I've had an idea to do. We've toyed around with the idea. We think they can see an infrared spectrum. So Norm's trying to find us some cameras that don't operate on infrared, and I'm trying to work on making a housing that would more mimic a natural look with wood or stuff like that, instead of just a big hunk of plastic sitting out there. Just a few little things here and there that we're trying to just toy around and try to see if we can get some different results.
Yeah. Yeah. Real quick, Damian K, he says, "I'm sorry, guys, I'm Polish. My English language might not be too good." That's okay. He finally answered what you asked. So
that's no problem.
Yep. So yeah.
I'm Southern. My English accent ain't that great neither.
I hear you. What do you guys have any, like, besides the Florida conference that you guys are doing, or do you have any plans like that? Are you guys going to go to the Dogman conference in Texas?
We've talked about it. It's a matter of if everybody's going to be able to get the time, because it's hard when Dot lives in Colorado, and DA's down there with you in Missouri, and Anthony's in Florida, and I'm in South Carolina, and Steve's in Missouri with DA. But it's hard to get us all, because it costs every one of us different prices to get to where we're going to go.
Right.
So it's complicated to get us all together, but that's definitely something that we've talked about, because we want to get a couple of conferences where we're all there together.
Yep. Yeah, we're doing. They've got the Bigfoot one in Gatlinburg.
Yeah, we talked about that one too.
Yeah, so Brandy and I are doing that one, and then there's a one in Arkansas we're doing in October, and then we're hitting the Dogman conference in over Labor Day weekend. So that'll be fun, just because you get a couple extra days, travel.
Speaking of Dogman, that was another thing that we all talked about on the Ex Machina crew, is Werewolf Springs is getting an expedition up there. We can go up there and stay a couple of days and do a live investigation for the podcast. That's kind of in the works too. So
yeah,
we got a few things we're working on.
Yeah, and the offer still stands to come to the range.
And we're planning on that too. It's like I said, it's just a matter of getting all these things lined up where we can all go there, because there's so many things we want to do, but right now it's a matter of what we can afford to do. And it's like, I want to do that, but no, I really want to do that too. But this, and hopefully one of these days, the YouTube channel will pay for all that. We can just go wherever we want to go, and that's what we're working at.
Yeah,
we're closing in on 5,000 subscribers at the Ex Machina, so we're getting there slowly, but
yeah, you guys are rocking it. You guys are definitely rocking it. There was another comment here. What do you think about? Says, "I'm not down with people that go in making all sorts of racket, doing calls and banging on trees. I think more could happen just being somewhat quiet." What do you think about all that?
We don't advocate that either, because I don't know what you don't know what you're saying or what you're doing.
Right.
I mean, that could be a mating call for all you know. I'm not going in, taking a Louisville Slugger and start smacking on trees, or doing the things that you've seen them do on Finding Bigfoot, yelling and hooping and hollering. That's
right. Yeah.
When I blow a deer call in the woods, I know what that means, and I know what I'm bringing them in for. I'm not about bringing a 1,200-pound Bigfoot in that thinks he's about to get some.
Right. I get it. Yeah, I always wonder that because, you see that on the TV shows and they all do it. All the TV shows do it. And, I guess it's maybe it's for ratings.
Hey, that's their prerogative. If they think that's what that goes back to, hey, I don't know that that's what that is, but I feel pretty sure that it's probably something either territorial or mating or challenge. And I don't want to do either one of those.
Any of them. Yeah, I'm with you on that. Wholeheartedly agree. Yeah. I don't know. There's just a lot to all of this, and I don't think in our lifetime we'll ever have the answers. I really don't. And even in my grandson's lifetime, I'm not even so sure who will have the answers, to all of this stuff because there's just so much to it, So anyway, I was just trying to go through the comments here. I don't want to miss any questions. And and what's really cool too, I've noticed like a lot of the comments, a lot of people, are the flesh and blood. And I've noticed through the comments and a lot of them, believe they're interdimensional, but looks like everybody, we're all still friends.
Yeah. I mean, if anybody wants to have that, that's everybody's right to have their own opinion. I'm not here to say that my opinion is the only opinion. Right. It's like when I went through one of my instructor courses with, for the ass straight baton, they were like, they beat that in our heads all week. This is not the only way, it's just a way.
Right.
You think mine's not the only opinion, it's just an opinion. It's my opinion. I mean, and that's what I believe based on, like you said, based on the encounters and the things that I've seen. That's what I believe. And I'm just stating my opinion. I'm not out here trying to say this is it. This is how, the knife hand thing. It's just my opinion. It's what I believe based on my experience and my training and the things that I've seen.
Right. Exactly. If you ever do make it to the LBL and you do see any kind of woo-ness, you got to let me know.
Oh, you're probably one of the first ones to know if I see anything strange like that.
Yeah. Like, our plans are to go back this year again. So I'm looking forward to that. And hopefully we'll have some more woo happen. Because I got to tell you, it was cool. It was cool. Penny Van says, anything is possible. I'm on Flesh and Blood team, but if they are in here in other realms all at once, but what if?
Yeah.
And it's absolutely correct. So, well, guys, we're coming up to the hour and a half mark. And usually BMR goes about right at an hour and a half. So we're going to call it a show. We appreciate everybody showing up. Robby, once again, tell everybody where they can find you. I know people have been dropping your link in the chat.
You can find What's Really Out There on Spotify, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, YouTube. And we pre-record that and we just upload them as we get them. My daughter and her boyfriend are our technical team. They do. My daughter does the artwork and he does the editing and stuff. So, once we record an episode, it's up to Tyler to get all that stuff done. So, and he does it for free. So I don't complain about if it takes him a few days to get stuff like that done because I don't have the money to pay anybody to do it. And Tyler does a really good job and Taylor does the artwork for free. So all that artwork you've seen of our thumbnails, my daughter does that. So
that's awesome.
If I had to pay somebody to do that, it would not be.
She does a great job.
Yep. So I don't complain that it takes a little bit of time to get that stuff out because they have their lives too. So, bear with me on that. But, we upload those. You can also find us on DAX Machina every Wednesday and Saturday night, 9 o'clock Central, I think. Is it not? Or 8 o'clock Central?
8 o'clock Central.
8 o'clock Central. 9 o'clock Eastern.
Yeah.
And
also, I can I'll share yours and DA's links to your YouTubes and Facebook groups on both BMR's group, on Texas Front Porch, and on Blondes and Booze, and I'll get that done within the next hour. So I
might want to tune in Saturday for DX Machina. It's going to be really, really good. We got the guy that's coming to talk about those Girl Scout murders out at that that just might could possibly have been a skinwalker. Some of the stuff we talked about here today. So that's going to be a good show. Buckle up on that one.
Yeah. You guys tune in tonight with Brandy and I on Blondes and Booze at 8 p.m. We have Shane Michael Crisp tonight. And then tomorrow night, we have Terry Mosby. We're going to talk UFOs and CE5 and just a bunch of weirdness of that. And then on Sunday, we actually have a bonus show. Our friend Michael Christopher is going to come on and do live readings for viewers. And Robby, I think you actually had a reading from him, didn't you, on one of our shows?
Yeah, a couple months ago, I think, or maybe a little further back.
Yeah, so he's a good guy. So you guys can tune in Sunday at 6 p.m. for that. So we appreciate everybody. Thank you once again, and tune in tonight. Bye-bye.